This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The one thing we don't want to do with our guest in this episode is box them in as just another athlete. That's because she now works as a creative consultant, founder and business owner, a dedicated advocate for the rights of women and girls. She hosts events, workshops, delivers keynote speeches, regularly speaks on panels and represents non-profits. I'm John.
And I'm Michael, and all using, but not exclusive to, the power of sport. And if I know a little about our interviewee, I would say the power of coffee too. She represented Team GB at 3 Olympic Games, winning a bronze medal in Paris. But there's a lot more to this career than just spikes and PBs. And full disclosure, she was always one of my favourite athletes to interview. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about the person behind the athlete.
Hi, so glad to be on here with you. This is Jodie, founder of Listen Journal. Recently, well, we were just discussing maybe not so recently retired professional athlete, about a year out. And yeah, doer of all things at the moment, honestly.
So Jodie Williams, Olympic bronze medalist from Paris 2024, is our guest on Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. Tell us about Listen Journal. What is it?
It is an ever-evolving space. Predominantly, it's a space for women of color to share their experiences on their own terms. It's a submission-based journal, both online and print. We're going through our first print process at the moment. We also run events and, in real life discussions. And we'll be branching into other things, which will be later to come this year too. But yeah, for me, it's really just a safe space for women, like I said, especially women of color, to come together and feel comfortable expressing themselves on their own terms and in their own words, and allowing for enough space for this to kind of evolve over time, really.
And what was the thinking behind creating this platform?
It's been an idea of mine for a really long time, actually. A lot of people maybe don't know that if I wasn't a professional athlete, I was really interested in being some kind of journalist, particularly a photojournalist. I always really felt drawn to reporting on things that maybe weren't always disclosed in mainstream media or telling real stories. I also wanted to be a psychologist, so I feel like maybe an amalgamation of these things, but I always wanted to get into journalism, and I wonder whether it was kind of well, it definitely was inspired by my own personal journey with the media. I didn't have the best experiences with the media growing up. I'd say, particularly the British media at the time that I was coming up wasn't the nicest media around. So I really wanted to create a space where people could reclaim their own stories and tell it on their own words and feel safe to, talk, really.
Did it change throughout your career, Jodie? Did it get better? Did social media help the fact that people can tell their own stories, or is it a case of, no, actually, look, it didn't get any better and that's why we're doing it?
It definitely changed. I'm not sure whether better is the right word. I think there were some good things and some bad things that came out of social media. I'm actually really glad that I wasn't at like the height of my knownness with the height of social media, honestly. Like, I couldn't imagine now coming up and having social media. I think it's given, well, athletes particularly, an opportunity to own their own stories. But I think with that, there's some downfalls with that too. I think you're just open and exposed to so much more like personal opinion than you ever were before. But on the flip side, you are given space to kind of own your own narrative a little bit more. I think the media landscape in general has gotten a little better. I think people discuss things more openly, and I think, obviously there's been huge talks around mental health and just generally like diversity and inclusion has been something that's much more at the forefront of people's minds. But I do think, there are certain parts of media that are still the same. And to each their own, honestly. I think, there's got to be a space for everything. But for me, I really just wanted to create like a safe little haven that I knew I could kind of protect, especially with the print aspect of it as well. In this day and age, things are changing so quickly, and with AI and everything, I think it's really important to have physical copies of things. And I think we're kind of losing that, but we're kind of seeing a resurgence of that too. But for me particularly, I really want to create a space where we could archive like very specific stories, because I do think those spaces are kind of getting a little lost.
And Michael mentioned something about coffee. Is it true to say that you kind of host events, workshops, but all around coffee? What's that mean?
Yes, so I've always been a lover of coffee, as Michael well knows. I'm a bit obsessive about things. Like once I get into something, I'm like, I'm gonna go all in with it. So I did that with coffee about, like 10 years ago now. I got really interested in coffee. First of all, I was really interested in coffee shops. They became quite a safe space for me. We're obviously always traveling around, going to new cities. I move around a lot, so like coffee shops became, safe spaces for me or something recognizable. And I got into coffee, and then I delved into the history of coffee and realized that, it originated in Ethiopia, and historically it is black and brown women who are the growers of coffee, who are the roasters of coffee, who facilitate most coffee ritual. And that really spoke to me. And I don't think it's something that's broadly known. I think coffee's become a commodity, something to grab, and now you get all these fancy flavors and things. And I really wanted to bring coffee back to its roots, and that's what our events are about. It's about using coffee as a tool for discussion, as a tool for gathering, something that is a ritual, teaching Black and brown women about the history of coffee and knowing that that is a space that was created by them. And yeah, for me, it's creating ritual and safety around something, and that thing just happens to be coffee.
You talked there about empowering women and girls, and one of the other organizations you're involved with is an organization in Uganda called Femlead, and that's a voluntary role for you. So tell us a little bit about how you support their work.
I started just over the pandemic with them. This organization was set up by an incredible woman called Esther. She was actually working with my cousin out in Uganda. My cousin was working for Amnesty International at the time, I think. So they met through that, and Esther mentioned that she wanted to start an organization at home. She needed some help with it, so my cousin helped her set up Femlead, which has now been 10 years running, I believe. And we're really focused on providing workshops and information around sexual health and menstrual health and girls' rights. Esther wanted to start this because she noticed that a lot of schoolgirls were dropping out of school very young, often due to child marriage, which is technically illegal, but culturally still very widely accepted. So Esther really wanted to make sure that these girls were staying through school and getting a full education. So we set up workshops. We have monthly to quarterly workshops around, everything from learning how to use menstrual pad, learning about your bodily rights, knowing that you do have rights, and a lot of community education as well. We've recently brought in a machine that will allow us to make sanitary towels on site. So that's a really exciting recent addition. And on my end, I really just help facilitate with the communication side. I help look for grants. We're pretty hands-on. It's a very small team of us. So really anything and everything that needs help with, I kind of get involved with Esther being kind of the main driving force on the ground there.
I said in the intro we were looking forward to finding out more about the person behind the athlete. Was it important to you when you were an athlete to have some of these outside interests?
Oh, yeah. I think I always say there's two types of athletes. I think there's athletes that are on this earth to be athletes, like they're really all in, they love the sport, they're so about it. This is their everything, this is their passion. And these athletes do really well with just sleeping, eating, training, breathing the sport. And I think we have really good examples of that within the sport. And then I think there are other athletes that maybe come at it from a slightly different lens where it's more of maybe a creative expression. And I think these athletes need to have another outlet. And I realized pretty late in the game that I was the latter type of athlete. I kind of grew up thinking that you had to be very all in. And again, I think this speaks to the era that I grew up into. Was a very, you have to eat, sleep, breathe the sport. You have to be this like almost non-human like kind of thing that just everything you do goes into the sport. And I grew up thinking that that's kind of how you had to approach it. That's what I was taught as well by coaches and people around me too, that this is an all-encompassing thing. And I do agree with that. I think when you're going for something or trying to achieve that level of success or whatever you want to call it, I do think it has to be a very all-in thing. But for me to be able to be all in, I needed other outlets. I needed other things to keep my brain stimulated. I've always been a very creative person that needs these other outlets to keep myself sane in some capacity. So I really found that doing other things on the side, I always had like 3 or 4 other things going on. I was always building something else. I'm full of ideas. I can't keep my ideas at bay. And I just, it got to the point where I was like, I need to put these somewhere. So I gave myself permission to do that really. And I think ever since then, it's been very evident that I'm not just one thing. And I used track and as a place to express myself as well. I think people often ask me about my hair color or, all these different things too. So I really saw sport as a creative outlet, and one of many really.
You burst onto the scene with a World Junior Gold, I think in 2010. Michael mentioned the 3 Olympic Games you went to, Rio, Tokyo, Paris, ended with the bronze in Paris last year. Commonwealth Games medals as well. What kept you going, Jodie?
Ooh, what did keep me going? It was it was tough, honestly. Like I said, I think I had maybe 3 different careers in one career. I think, I had that very early on career, like you mentioned, with that early on success where I was just, I think fear was driving me at that point. I was a young girl. I had kind of been, everything snowballed very quickly. Like I was a very determined young person. I was very single-minded. I really wanted to do this track thing, this athletics thing. So I was very single-minded in that. And then I think it snowballed really quickly for me with that World Youth Gold and then the World Junior Gold. And then all of a sudden, I think we're in the lead up to 2012. So it kind of, it gets just like out of control. So I think at that point it was fear, honestly. The media had me pitted as the one to watch, and there was all this external interest in me, and just a lot of external drive for me at that point. I think I had a team around me and just all these people, and I was 15, not really knowing what was going on and not really feeling like I had much control over it. So I think at that point, fear, yeah, was driving me. And then I think that middle part of my career, that was the hardest part for me, honestly. Nothing was really going right. I didn't medal for like 7 years or something. I felt like I was constantly getting injured. I was really struggling to find my place in the sport. And I think I felt very lonely during this time. Obviously I had that huge team at first, and then everything kind of dropped off as it does when you're not so successful. And I think for me that period of time was really about finding myself. And I think that's where you see me starting all these new different things and really exploring who I was as a person. So I think during that period of time, that's kind of what kept me going, was just self-exploration. And really honestly, like I didn't know what else to do. This is all I had known. So I just kind of kept going out of just, this is what I do. Um, and then I think that final part of my career, I think where like maybe post-pandemic, or you see a bit of a career resurgence for me, I switched to the 400, right? I start medaling again. I medal indoors. I make an Olympic final. And I think for me, that part of my career was really driven by a different external factor. I started seeing athletics and running as as a self-expression. I think I really found who I was. I think it's quite evident in those last parts of my career that I really found me, and I was using it now as an expression of those things, and really using the platform as a voice for others. I think that's kind of what kept me going, was the more successful I could be on the track, the more rooms I could get into, and I could use those rooms to help facilitate what was going on in these other things for Femlead or for whatever I needed to. It was giving me access to places that other people didn't have access to. And I could now be a voice in those rooms for these other people. So I think that's kind of what drove like the last final years of my career, was just that level of access that I could use to help other people, really.
And look, it's a heck of a career. You don't get many Olympic bronze medalists in the world, and certainly not in Great Britain. And you should be really proud of it. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I enjoyed elements of it for sure. Um, and I think now that I'm a year out, I look back with like great fondness. I think when I was in it,
Good.
maybe less fondness. Because it's very all-encompassing, and it does, when it's not going so well, it does feel like labor. But when it's going really well, then it feels like the greatest thing on earth. So for me, I feel extremely privileged to have been able to be afforded such a long career, and to be able to have done it pretty much on my own terms. And now that I'm stepping into the real world, also just a huge privilege to have been doing something that I loved and that was a choice of mine to do. I think that's an extreme, both privilege and, testament to someone's determination. I think two things have to be true: the opportunity for access, which I was granted through my parents and their extreme want to support me, and then also, that self-determination to keep that going. So yeah, I look back with great fondness now, but I think maybe there were definitely great spans of my career that I maybe didn't enjoy so much.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful, and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
This is Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy.
Did you watch any of the recent World Championships? Was that something that you thought, I need to see what Amber Anning's doing? She's my successor, if you like.
It's so funny because I actually did, like, Amber is someone that I was very close to coming up, and I know her parents well, and we're with the same agency, so I was actually watching Amber. And Vicky and all the 400 girls. I did tune in. It's funny because I was never really like an athletics fan. I'm not really a big sports fan, which is people always find interesting. And when I was competing, I never really watched athletics much. But no, I was tuning in to like every session. It was really cool to have that experience as a fan. I loved watching my teammates. I'm still in touch with a lot of them, and if not in touch, then I still feel a great love for a lot of them. And yeah, on Amber, it's incredible to see her consistently churning out these incredible times and being up there. And a part of me also felt like, oh, I retired at the right time because these girls are rolling 48 to medal. And I was like, ooh, that's taken a different level. So it felt good. So I was like, yeah, I think I tapped out at the right time.
I was going to ask you that actually. I remember it was pretty much, I think, the last night, wasn't it, of track and field when you won your bronze medal at Paris 2024. I think we were all tired, worn out. Then 8 of you appeared in front of me for an interview. Not the easiest situation to try
Yeah.
and interview 8 people. And I remember, I think I did gravitate towards you a little bit because we'd obviously spoken before. But I remember thinking afterwards, oh, I wonder whether this might be the last time we see you on this stage, just from what you had said, maybe your body language as you were leaving the arena. I'm not quite sure. I just had that inkling. Did you know that was going to be it?
Yeah, I knew the whole year. It's funny if you watch some of my interviews, you can kind of tell, or like you can kind of hear me hinting at other things. I didn't want to make it public just because I knew what that would create. I really wanted to take the year for myself. I knew from the beginning of the year, I had actually wanted to retire for a while. So those last couple of years were actually really hard for me mentally to keep going, especially in the 400, which is such a difficult event. And I was having some other issues as well, some other health issues alongside of it. So it was tough. But no, I knew for the full year. So I went into every race knowing, okay, well, this is the last time I'm competing here. This is the last time I'm competing here. And then the London Diamond League, actually, I knew that was going to be the last time I pushed out of blocks. So to step out into that stadium and see it, I didn't know it had sold out or anything like this. I had no idea. So I stepped out into the London Stadium and knowing that was my last ever 400, the last time I was ever going to push out of blocks, and it was like 60,000 people there or something. I was like, this is insane. And obviously I had missed London 2012 and then I missed London 2017. So I have some, a little bit of beef with that stadium too. Like, me and that stadium don't get along so well. So it felt so quite beautiful actually that ended up being my last race, and it ended up being a completely full packed out stadium. And it felt like a championships. So yeah, it was great. I knew the whole year. I knew going into the games that was going to be our last one. You see me crying on the podium, and it's because I know. I mean, one, we've got an Olympic medal. Obviously, everyone wants to do that, but it was just such a beautiful moment having 8 of us on the podium. I knew it was my last time. Some of these girls been competing with my whole career. Some were just beginning. It just felt really like a great way for me to be wrapping things up. It felt really, really great. I felt like I was gifted that season, honestly, because it was hard. Training wise, it was not going well. Like things were not things were not going well at all. So I feel like somewhere something gifted me that season for sure.
Well, a great way to finish for you. 2 quick questions for me. Where's the medal?
The medal is with my mum. Yes, I move around a lot. I'm very all over the place. So I keep it with my mum, knowing that she's gonna keep it safe. Because if it's with me, who knows where it's gonna be.
And just quickly, I mentioned the Commonwealth Games. Obviously, the fact that Glasgow, you won your medals there in 2014, and they're back there in 2026. It was important that the Commonwealth Games continued from an athletics point of view.
I love the Commonwealth Games. Um, it's a great starting point, I think, for so many athletes. It's a really great like entry level but multi-sport thing. Obviously I've got 3 Commonwealth Game medals, both being at home. So for me, the Commonwealth Games has a special place in my heart for sure. I think it's an important sporting event to keep going. I'm sure there's lots of debate over many other parts of whether the
Of course.
Commonwealth Games should be a thing, for sure. And to those points, I completely agree. But from a purely sporting and selfish lens, the Commonwealth Games has a great place in my heart, and I think it's a really important event for younger up and coming athletes to have a great chance at securing their first. It was my first senior medal, and I think it's a really great place, especially in the sprints, to try and secure that first senior level medal. And it's a great springboard onto what the Olympic Games kind of feels like, just on a micro level.
And when you won that Commonwealth Games medal or medals in Glasgow, they then bring you to the glamour of what was a marquee, a bowling club near Celtic Park with a tree in the middle. Do you remember that at all?
I remember that really clearly, actually.
It's hard to forget if you've been in that tent.
Yeah.
Just finally, Jodie, I think, what would be your message to people that are following in your footsteps about what sport can bring, the platform it can offer, and the life lessons that you can take forward as you are now, as you put on LinkedIn the other day, as a business owner? You're a business owner.
Crazy. I did not see that coming. I think, honestly, like, for me, sports is a whirlwind, and I think when you're in it, it can feel so all-consuming, and it feels at times even like sometimes life or death. It's been life or death for me before, so I completely understand how that feels. But for me, I would just say, like, try and enjoy the experience as much as you can. It's a beautiful thing to be able to be doing something that you've chosen to do, and to be pouring so much of yourself into something that you've chosen. I've definitely noticed the strengths and the skills that sport has equipped me with, especially now stepping into this new phase of my life, figuring out this whole business thing and just how to be a person interacting with whatever we want to call it, the real world, I guess. It's given me so many skills, and I think I feel it just gives you a different level of drive and commitment that a lot of people don't have. That I genuinely didn't know that. I think you're surrounded by it 24/7, and I think you don't realize how much of a unique skill it really is going to be for you going forwards. To younger athletes in this day and age, I would just say focus on building whatever you want to call it, your brand, your passions. You have great opportunities to be able to build that for yourself on your own terms. With social media, I would utilize that hugely. And please, I beg of you, in those final years of your career, or maybe even earlier, start setting things up for your future life, because it will just spring on you, and you need to make sure that you have some kind of direction, at least. So I would definitely recommend to all young athletes to think of life beyond sport, and make sure that you have something else that you enjoy.
Well, another terrific conversation on the podcast. Thank you for your time. If you find yourself in Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games next year, or Birmingham for the European Championships, let's all get together, have a coffee, and carry on the chat. Jodie Williams, founder of Listen Journal, Director of Development and Communications at Femlead, Olympic bronze medalist. Thank you for speaking to Anything But Footy.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.